Josh, you better be awake. Okay, let's get started. Module 5. We're going to review our last conclusion that Descartes has come to. Well, really, it's his first conclusion, but the last one we looked at. And that was...
It's his second conclusion.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, his second conclusion. And that was that I am a thing that thinks. And as you will no doubt be well aware, he got to that point by going, all right, so I thought I was a thing that... I thought I was a man, and by that I had a body and I had a soul. And he then subtracted those things with the help of that pesky demon. It was like, no, I cannot trust that I have a body. No, I cannot trust that I have a soul. And he came down to, all I can be certain about myself is that I am a thinking thing. All right, so that's where we're at right now. And today we're going to look at, well, he's going to actually try and build back up, I guess, that idea of a body and ultimately a mind so that he can know he has a body. No? Miss Fitz is looking at me.
I don't know, something like that. We're looking at his third conclusion today.
Okay, which is along the lines of, we have a mind.
Yeah, definitely. He never comes to the conclusion that he knows he has a body, though.
Oh, really? Okay, key thing to note. They now know that forever.
Okay, good.
Great. Okay, so before he gets started with this part, he kind of elaborates a bit more on what he means by himself being a thinking thing, by saying that thinking includes these things. It's a thing that doubts, it's understanding, it's affirming, denying, it is willing and unwilling, and also it imagines and has sensory perceptions. So this, especially this part of it's something that imagines and has sensory perceptions, is going to be really important in a moment, but we'll come to that.
So Descartes knows he's a thinking thing, but wants to find out more about himself. This quote, I think, is quite interesting, so I'll read out a few sections of it. He starts by saying, from all this, so all the reasoning he's done up to this point, he's beginning to have a rather better understanding of what he is, because now he knows that he's a thinking thing, right? And also that he exists. But he's still kind of a bit confused. He says, it still appears, and I cannot stop thinking this, that the corporeal things of which images are formed in my thought and which the senses investigate are known with much more distinctness than this puzzling I, which cannot be pictured in the imagination. Now, what the heck does this mean? Well, I think it means that intuitively, what does intuitively mean?
It means
like
I just know within myself.
His gut feel kind of is that he knows corporeal things, which are physical things, like bodies. His gut feel is that he understands physical things better than he understands his mind. He says this puzzling I, which he means the mind by this puzzling I. And I guess that makes sense in a way. You know, we feel like the things that we see and touch, we know them quite well because we are able to perceive them through our senses. But to think of our own mind, what is that? We don't really have an understanding of what that is. So he's trying to quash it, but he still has this persistent gut feeling that he knows physical things better than mental things.
It's like back in orientation week when we got you, I think, to even try and draw your mind.
And
then a lot of people struggle with that because it is just such a... We know...
It's an abstract concept.
We kind of feel like we know what it is, but we can't picture it or really know it.
Yeah, and that's why he says in this final paragraph here, and yet it is surely surprising that I should have a more distinct grasp of things which I realise are doubtful than I have of that which is true and known, my own self. So here he's saying, well, actually, I know for sure that I exist, that my mind exists, but I don't know for sure that physical things exist. So it's a bit weird that I should feel like I know physical things better than mental things.
So now he tries to resolve that.
Yeah, he's trying to... well, the question that he's asking is... the key question that he's engaging with in this upcoming bit of text is, what do I know better, my mind or my body?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Here we go.
Okay, so the reason these three things are so key are that they're, to Descartes, he considers they're three ways of knowing things. And also, if we go back to thinking about the thinking thing, there are three things he believes that a thinking thing can do. They can sense things, they can imagine things, and they can doubt and consider things.
Mentally scrutinise things.
Exactly. So that's what we mean by mentally scrutinise. They're doubting and they're thinking about.
Well, let's go through... Can we go through these one by one? Because
Yeah,
I think
sure.
it's important to have a grasp of these. How do you know things through the senses? Or how do you try to know things through the senses?
You see them, or you touch them, or you hear them.
Yep, cool, yep. And normally you'd be perceiving physical things through the senses. Yep.
Yep.
What about through the imagination? How do you use your imagination to try to understand things?
You think about what it could look like or what it could seem like.
Yeah, so I picture imagination as trying to form a picture in your mind, I guess, of something that may or may not be real.
Yeah, cool.
Whereas the last one, mental scrutiny, we should talk about what scrutiny means.
Yes.
Scrutiny basically means looking at something very closely, like examining something closely. So mental scrutiny, to scrutinise something. Mental scrutiny must be looking at something very closely with your mind.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between that and imagination? Yeah, it's a hard one.
It's a hard one. Imagination is thinking more broadly. I don't know, more not being so bound by realities or the truth, whereas scrutiny, you're really trying to get to the truth of something.
That's the only difference I can think of, is that I think imagination refers to forming mental images of something that might not actually be real, whereas mental scrutiny is trying to really understand with your mind something that is real.
Yeah.
And so Descartes uses a few different synonyms for mental scrutiny throughout the text. So whenever he talks about, I guess, thinking, I think he's talking about mental scrutiny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Descartes' key questions that he's considering for the rest of the text are, I guess, number one, what we said before, which was, does he know his mind better or his body better? Which one does he have a better understanding of? And secondly, there's kind of a related question, I feel, which is, what does he use to understand physical things? Does he use his senses? Does he use his imagination? Or does he use mental scrutiny? So these two questions kind of work together to form his ultimate conclusion that he comes to here.
Okay.
So what he does is he says, let's take a specific example of a physical body. And that example is a piece of wax. So he's talking about wax that's actually taken from a honeycomb.
Yep. Genuine
wax. So he starts by considering, do I understand the wax through my senses?
Yep. And so, sorry, this is just on page 20 that we're at. Yep.
Yep, kind of nearly halfway down page 20. So his first question is, do I get my information about the wax through my senses? So he starts going on about all the different sensory perceptions that he has of the wax. For example, the taste. What does it taste like?
Yep.
Tastes like honey, he says.
Yep.
What does it smell like?
It smells like honey. Sweet. It smells sweet and lovely.
Well, he actually says, I think, it has not quite lost the scent of flowers. Yeah, it retains some of the scent of the flowers from which it was gathered. It is lovely. And obviously it has a distinct colour and shape and size, which we can see. And what about the feel of it? How does it feel?
Cold, and it is hard and cold and can be handled without difficulty.
Yeah, so it has a distinct feel. And how does it sound?
You can wrap it with your knuckle. It makes a sound.
Yeah,
That's
so
helpful.
That's the sound of honey. Sound of wax, rather, I should say. Because it's hard, it makes a sound if you tap it.
Okay.
So these are all the sensory perceptions that we have of this piece of wax.
Cool.
But, and this is very exciting, Descartes puts the wax over a flame. And what happens to it?
It melts.
I know.
Revolutionary.
So I hope you enjoy this picture of melting wax. And this is really fascinating, I think. I think it's a very clever argument that he's making. Not necessarily a sound argument, but clever nonetheless. Once the wax melts, what happens to the taste? Can you still taste the honey? He says that the taste of the honey goes away after it melts. What about the smell? Yeah.
It would smell rubbery? No, how's that a smell?
Anyway, the smell changes after it melts. I think he says that the smell of flowers
goes away.
Yeah, the smell of flowers goes away. No more flowers.
Mitch, you better bring me some flowers.
The look also changes, as you can see in this picture. It's gone all kind of blackened, and obviously it looks melty.
Melty.
The feel of it changes. It's obviously hot now, and it's also kind of liquid now. And the sound, can you wrap the melted wax with your knuckles and make a sound? No, it's not really going to make a sound if you do that. Yeah.
Like, flick it.
So here's the big conclusion that he makes here. Everything that he has perceived about this wax through his senses has completely changed.
Yes.
Every sensory perception.
Yeah.
But do we still know it's the same wax?
We do.
Well, yes, we do. So Descartes says it's obviously not our senses that gives us the information that is the same wax. There must be some other faculty of understanding.
Way of understanding
That's giving us that knowledge.
Yeah.
Which is not the senses.
Damn senses. So, here's just a bit of a quote, and this really is just summing up what we've just said, that everything we know by means of our senses actually changes or is altered, and yet the wax remains. So the conclusion he draws from that is that we don't get our knowledge of bodily things through the senses.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Very
See ya.
good.